Today, I'll take you on a journey into the twisted and dark life of one of history's most fascinating and complex serial killers, Jack Unterweger. From the shadowy streets of Austria to the bright cities of America, this story unfolds like a chilling tale of deceit and manipulation. Jack wasn't just a murderer, he was also a master manipulator, a writer, and a man who wore the mask of innocence while hiding horrific truths beneath. But how could a serial killer convince society that he was a rehabilitated man? And what lay beneath that carefully constructed facade? In this video, we'll uncover Jack Unterweger's dark past, the gruesome murders he committed, and his eventual capture. This is not just a story about a murderer, but a deep dive into the dark corners of human nature and the flaws within our justice systems. So, if you're ready, let's delve into the chilling world of Jack Unterweger. Jack Unterweger was born on August 16, 1950, in Graz, Austria. But his birth wasn't a cause for celebration or hope. His mother was a sex worker who often found herself on the wrong side of the law. His father was an American soldier stationed in Europe, a man who would never play a role in Jack's life. From the very start, Jack's life was defined by neglect and abuse. At just 4 years old, his mother was imprisoned for criminal activities, leaving Jack in the care of his grandmother. Unfortunately, this wasn't the safe haven one might hope for. Instead, Jack grew up in an environment rife with violence, alcoholism, and instability conditions that would deeply shape his psyche. As a teenager, Jack's criminal tendencies became evident. He began with petty theft and fraud but soon escalated to far more serious crimes. His first known murder occurred in 1970 when he brutally strangled an 18-year-old woman to death. This heinous act earned him a life sentence in prison, a sentence that would become a pivotal chapter in his story. During his time in prison, Jack Unterweger underwent what many believe to be a remarkable transformation. He began to write, channeling his emotions and intellect into poetry, plays, and novels. His autobiography, Fegefeuer Purgatory, became a bestseller, capturing the attention of Austria's literary and intellectual circles. Jack's writings painted him as a man deeply remorseful for his crimes, a man who had stared into the abyss of his soul and emerged a better person. Intellectuals and activists rallied behind him, advocating for his release. They saw him not as a criminal but as a symbol of redemption, a living example of how art could rehabilitate even the darkest of souls. Their efforts paid off. In 1990, Jack Unterweger was released on parole, hailed as a success story of the justice system. Little did anyone know, his release would mark the beginning of a killing spree that would span multiple countries. After his release, Jack Unterweger quickly gained notoriety as a journalist, traveling extensively under the guise of covering crime stories. However, behind the scenes, he was leaving a trail of blood wherever he went. Between 1990 and 1992, Jack murdered at least 11 women across Austria, Germany, the Czech Republic, and the United States. His victims were primarily sex workers, whom he lured under the pretense of an interview or a date. Jack's modus operandi was chillingly consistent. He would strangle his victims using their own bras or tights, a gruesome signature that police would later recognize. Despite his horrifying deeds, Jack maintained his public image as a reformed intellectual. In a twisted irony, he even reported on some of his own crimes, covering them as a journalist. It was this double life that allowed him to evade suspicion for so long. Eventually, Jack's pattern of murders drew the attention of law enforcement. Investigators began to notice striking similarities between the cases, the method of strangulation, the locations, and even the timing of the murders. Suspicion fell on Jack Unterweger, whose frequent travels to the crime location seemed far from coincidental. In 1992, Jack was arrested after a tense manhunt. His trial became a media spectacle, with Jack once again taking center stage, this time as a defendant. Despite his eloquent defense and continued claims of innocence, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The jury found him guilty of multiple murders, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. But Jack Unterweger's story ended as dramatically as it had unfolded. Just 1 year into his sentence, he committed suicide in his prison cell, leaving behind a legacy of horror and deception. Jack Unterweger's story is not just the tale of a killer but a chilling reflection of human nature and the flaws within society. He was a man who manipulated those around him, using his charm and intellect to mask the darkness within. His case forces us to ask difficult questions. Can true rehabilitation exist for someone so deeply consumed by evil? And how can society ensure that such individuals don't exploit the very systems designed to protect us? Jack Unterweger's life and crimes serve as a haunting reminder that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes, they stand in plain sight, wearing the mask of redemption.